Hi, diddle dee dee, an actor's life for me. Hi, everybody, it's Gary Lucas. Welcome to part two of my tribute to Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band's album, Dock at the Radar Station. That's better, right? And we have lovely Caroline gracing our presence in the room today, and Lulu. She's waving hello to you guys, but I can't do a reverse angle in this setup. But so, let's see, where were we? Well, one of the steadfast regulars on this podcast, or live stream, or whatever the heck you want to call it, is a lady named Amy Alt, and she wanted me to kind of explain what it was actually all about, Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band, that so captivated me after I saw their live show here in New York at Ungano's, this little club up on the Upper West Side. I'll say a couple of things about that too, some background on that show. Ungano's was a sort of transient rock club in New York. I think the owner's Nick Ungano. I've met people who knew him, and it was a comfortable place to see rock. So I drove down there, as I mentioned, with my two buddies, and on Don's three-day stand, some amazing jazz musicians based in New York passed through to check him out, including Mingus and Max Roach, I believe, Art Blakey, and Ornette Coleman, who was a friend of Don's, and also Roland Kirk, whose widow Dorothy told Don some years later, Roland would wake up in the middle of the night and say, "I gotta hear Trout Mask Replica." So he had his fans among the free jazz community. And anyway, so what was it that blew me away about it? Well, I'd never really seen energy on display with such verve and style as this group. I mean, it was really like seeing, Martians or somebody, having descended to Earth, set up their instruments and play just music from another planet. I mean, it was just so intense and fun and colorful. Maybe it was also because I was very stoned. In any case, it just had an amazing impact on me, and that's when I said, I want to join this group. But here I'm looking back on it from the vantage point of not getting stoned for at least 10 years now. And I don't think really the drugs made any difference. And in fact, Jan Van Vliet used to say, Don's music is best enjoyed in a coffee atmosphere, which, signaled a certain foregrounded alert mode. You had to definitely have all of your auditory apparatus working and really kind of train your attention on the music as it was unfolding in front of you to take it all in. But there's tapes of it. I believe a tape of one of the nights on YouTube, and you can hear it. It's just like an incredible onslaught of very fiendishly difficult to play music, but incredibly precisely executed with verve and panache. And that was this kind of like jeu d'esprit that I wanted to be part of. And I knew that also as a guitarist, to be able to play with this guy would single me out, which it did over the years, because the reviews of my performance of the piece Flavor Bud Living received very high praise indeed in the press. I dare say it put me on the musical map as a player for people who were paying attention, but I remember running into somebody who read it in a dentist's office. I was working up at CBS Records, and so, I mean, it got noticed, by people who actually never really took me as, I'd never been on a record before, so it was a big deal. And speaking of the record, look what I just discovered in my archive over here, but a clean. Now, this is an unopened copy of the veritable album under discussion, Dock at the Radar Station, but this is a Canadian pressing distributed by Polygram in Canada. Now, the story with the release of this album, as I was trying to tell last time, it's a bit confusing, but this was the first album to come out under this new revised deal Don had with Virgin Records. There was a bone of contention about Shiny Bee's back chain puller insofar as Warner Brothers claimed the rights to it worldwide, and Virgin claimed that they had signed down worldwide, and it was eventually settled in Virgin's favor. So this is the first fruits of this fully virginized deal that Don had. And it says here, specially priced album. Now, that could be it was out on a deal. I don't think it was at this point a cutout. But look, it's a clean, meaning it's never been opened. So there's an actual Virgin record inside here, albeit distributed by Polygram. And look, the back is a nice shot of the band. I'm not in this picture, which people have used this to invalidate my presence on a lot of this stuff over the years. But hey, I was managing the guy, you know, and he put me on the record out of respect and because he knew I wanted to play with him. And he wasn't dissatisfied. I mean, they used the first take, but I'm not going to play that today. I'm working up to it for the last show in this series on Saturday. And then I will lay that on you, but I got to get it back under my fingers. The cover used the color scheme, Don's favorite color scheme of yellow and black. He was very big on this bumblebee coloring. And it shows what may be an Asian woman. You know, he said it was. I'm not sure when he drew it, it was. But an Asian woman having a communication problem with this guy over here who's being blocked by the red sticker. And the guy is obviously a stand-in for Don. And, or maybe not. So, anyway, I'm going to go back to some earlier music that I just want to play to get in the spirit here before talking some more. Let's see now. Depending on what tuning this is in, I'll play accordingly. That's a little bit of When It Blows It Stacks. It's hard to play these things in out of the context of the songs, and I need the whole band thundering along with me to do it justice, but you should check out the version we cut, The World of Captain Beefheart, featuring myself and the great Nona Hendryx, on a record for Knitting Factory. It came out about 2 years ago now, almost. And there's a smoking version of this song on there. I mean, I went to town on the guitar work, and all of the players were top-notch. Jesse Krakow on bass, Richard Dworkin on drums, Jordan Shapiro on keyboards, Nona on great vocals, and some great lyrics there. You know, he takes him out on an iceberg, hands him a Ronson, and says, "I'll see you around." A Ronson is a kind of a cigarette lighter that was very popular in the 50s and early 60s. I had a Ronson. They were really like slick little kind of like oblong chrome cigarette lighters with a flip top, and very nifty. And so there are references to Americana sprinkled throughout these records. And it takes time and patience to explicate them all, but it helps if you're American probably, so you could place the context, but even better would be if you were from LA. For instance, the song Moonlight on Vermont, which is on Trout Mask Replica, and was one of the first things cut for that album with Gary Marker on the bass, which isn't much written about. It's not written about in the album liner notes, but then again, John French's name is left off the album liner notes. But anyway, that's a reference to Vermont Avenue in LA, where Don hung out and had relatives living there. And this is courtesy of Don's cousin, Terry Van Vliet. After Don passed away, Terry contacted me and I invited him in. I was scheduled to do a Captain Beefheart symposium in LA. And then Don died, but I was determined to go ahead, especially I thought it was even more appropriate to do it with his passing. And a little backstory about that, I was in Havana, Cuba, where I'd been working on and off for some years, a lovely, lovely place to visit. You should, if you get a chance, please go. I mean, if you're American, it's damn hard now under Trump again, but maybe that'll change around, we hope, after this election. But anyway, so I was scheduled to play at the Havana Jazz Festival in a club, very well-known club in downtown Havana. And I was with my friend Toby Brocklehurst, our man in Havana, a great English character who's lived down there for, 20, 30 years. And we stepped out of a Paladar, which is kind of a very fine restaurant. There are many around Havana that are privately run by families, but you can get the most exquisite cooking and gourmet quality meals for not a lot of money there. And we were heading down to the jazz club, and I looked up and the sky was filled with stars. I mean, it was the most vivid celestial horizon I've seen for a long time. And suddenly this line of Don Van Vliet's came to me, which was, "The stars are matter, we're matter, but it doesn't matter." And that's written on the back of the Spotlight Kid album. A little Zen haiku kind of for you by Don. And I was like, what did he mean by that? This association with the stars flooding down upon us, and that line, what was he trying to say? And then I thought, I took comfort from it. I said, it's like a John Lennon, we all shine on like the moon and the stars and the sun. We're all matter. We're indestructible in that way. Because like when we die, we're going to be rendered into matter. It goes back into the universe, and it was a nice cosmic image. So on the way back to New York, I flew out of Cuba the next day to Miami, where I changed planes, and my cell phone, of course, was American registered. It did not work in Havana. But as soon as I landed in Miami to change planes, it worked, and my webmaster, Tanya Weeman, contacted me and said, "Gary, did you hear the news? Don just passed away." So I started, and I was like, well, man, I was thinking about this image last night. Why? And then I felt good about it. Like I thought I was getting a little message, kind of a wave on the way out from Don, or his spirit. And if anybody was capable of doing that, it would be Don Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart. So I went ahead with this symposium in LA, and people flocked to it. There were some young people, there were pictures on my website. They looked like about 15, 16-year-old kids who'd hitchhiked from the rural South to be there. And I had many special guests, among them Facebook's own Pamela Des Barres, originally Pamela Miller, who ran the Captain Beefheart fan club as a teenager with Don's other cousin, Victor Hayden, who passed away a couple of years ago. He was known as the Mascara Snake. And Pamela showed up with kind of like a poster that they had made for an early appearance of Don's in LA that was something to see unfurled. And anyway, who else was there? Matt Groening was there, one of the world's biggest Beefheart fans, the creator of The Simpsons, and as well as my friend Bill Moseley, paid his respects, and some Magic Band members from my era, including Robert Williams And Brave Midnight Hat's Eye Snyder, a.k.a. Rick Snyder, is also on Facebook. So that was a lot of fun. And anyway, while I have a moment, I want to thank Dan Ciccatti, who surprised me in a very nice way last night by visiting my virtual tip jar at PayPal and bestowing an incredible gift upon me and Caroline, and thank you very much for that. And Todd Gray also the day before did a similar gesture, and the address there is gary@garylucas.com. And I don't know, somebody makes me an offer for this clean of Doc at the Radar Station. I don't know, I might be tempted to part with that. I have a bunch of editions over here of Doc. I have the English pressing and the American, of course, with a beautiful glossy cover, an Australian pressing, a Canadian pressing we just saw. Actually, the cover of this album appears in an Eric Rohmer film. I believe it's Pauline at the Beach. It may be Le Rayon Vert, the Green Ray. But in one sequence, these kind of bored, dissatisfied French hipsters who are vacationing at the seaside go into a house after like a sort of a failed encounter on the beach where they don't communicate very well. And there's a stack of records, and on the top of the stack is Doc at the Radar Station, which, now, I don't know if it was Rohmer himself who was a fan, but it might have been. Or maybe it was his set decorator. But they thought, I guess it was a good synecdoche or visual metaphor for failure to communicate, which is basically this cover. You just have to, you have to do a little erasure mentally here of this red dot. But that's part of the package now. Anyway, so I think I'll play some more Beefheart music for you. This is from my favorite Beefheart album, Lick My Decals Off Baby. It's the Smithsonian Institute Blues, which was a prescient song title of Don's because Troutmask Replica was actually inducted into the Smithsonian Archive of Fantastic Recorded Wonderment. I guess they have such things. A couple of years ago, which was a nice gesture there, right? Come on down to the Big Dig now. The Big Dig was a description of the great spaghetti tie-up in Boston. They were working, the municipal authorities in Boston, for many, many years on reconstructing roadways there and bringing things up to snuff and connecting the dots with the transit authority. And it was known as the Big Dig, colloquially and in the press. And at that point, Don was very good friends with Langdon Winner, who I believe is still teaching up at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And Langdon wrote the first definitive profile of Don that appeared when Don was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine in 1970, I believe it was, right before I got up to Yale, which was an amazing era of Rolling Stone. I mean, they had Miles Davis, Electric Miles, on the cover, and Don. And can you imagine them doing it these days? No, I don't think so, but it was a bit of a golden age. So anyway, Langdon told Don all about the Big Dig, and I think he incorporated that into the lyrics. And Don was very much a collagist in a way, in that he was very good at taking found objects, recontextualizing them mentally and visually, and creating some startling juxtapositions. I think this is really the driving aesthetic of his music, which to me, like, the blues element is always paramount, but Don updates it with elements of free jazz and polyrhythms and again, you know, found sounds out of nature. The whole motif of Bat Chain Puller really came from a squeaking windshield wiper in Don's Volvo, which he taped. It made a very characteristic yeah. And anyway, he had Eric Feldman duplicate this on his synthesizers. I was in a hotel room with Don in London in 1980, a hotel on Bayswater, right across the street from Hyde Park, and we were getting ready to play at the Venue, Richard Branton's club, for the next 2 nights. And we did so well there, we sold out, and a lot of people came, including Adrian Sherwood, my friend. I know Kevin Coyne was there, who I later collaborated with. I ran into Alan White of the Plastic Ono Band in the dressing room. Many, many people, I think, came to check these shows out, which were great. And then they put a third show on. But anyway, the night before, Don, I was with him in his hotel room with Jan, and he carried this little tape recorder around with him everywhere to record ideas and then give the ideas to the band members to realize. So he took an ashtray, he was kind of bored in the hotel room, and he hurled it against the wall. It bounced off the wall and then wobbled on the floor in this hotel room, and it made a typical wobbling, like wop, 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 wop. So he did it again, and he taped it. He turned on his tape recorder and taped it, and he said, "I'm going to give this to Williams, man. That's a whole new drum solo we're going to use in a piece." So you know, a lot of this seems very whimsical, and maybe it is, but I mean, if anybody was able to create assemblages, which I would call actually much of the music on Traummask and Decals, the most avant-garde albums, are like kind of sonic versions of 3D mobiles that you might see spinning in the air in a modern art museum by people like Giacometti, other people who specialized in making mobiles out of metal shards, let's say, and found things assembled. So some of the music has this quality of like, they're little wheels within wheels spinning as the songs are playing, and there's a lot of contrary motion going on with the various rhythms, but then they usually always sync up. And there's one song that I did with him called Cardboard Cutout Sundown on the next album, Ice Cream for Crow, which proved to be the last album. And in that, he sent me a piece of music to learn, the title of which was Oat Hate, O-A-T-H-A-T-E. I believe it's on my SoundCloud page. I posted the instrumental recorded here, and this came from a very dense tape of him playing the piano. And I worked extremely hard on realizing this on guitar. It had no regular motifs. It sort of wandered through the keys, but it was exciting to learn and get down under my fingers and memorize it. So he had me learn that, and then independent of me, he got with the band the week before I got out to LA to record this record. And he taught them through whistling and scat singing, which was another one of his methodologies of composition, a very kind of happy, sad piece that meanders a little bit, which is the intro of Cardboard Cutout Sundown. So he had me in the studio with phones on, and they were with phones, but there was baffling around us, so I was separate with my amplifier to minimize leakage. And then in my earphones, Don would give me instructions, start and stop. So when he said start, I was to just start playing this piece as using the exploding note theory, which I talked about last time. And then when he said stop, I would stop until he told me to start again, and that's how we got through it. He then laid a poem on top of it, and as a spoken word kind of piece. But if you hear it, at one point, when I am playing on the guitar, and what the three guys in the band are playing, seems to sync up rhythmically and harmonically. It's uncanny. It's like one of the most, synchronistic elements I've ever heard in improvised, or this wasn't really improvised music. This was composed music that was drilled. We weren't improvising, but actually there was this random factor with Don doing his stop and start thing. And then at one point it syncs up, and later on, I said, Don, how did you do that? That's totally counterintuitive genius. And he just kind of looked at me, I had it up here. And maybe he did. I'd like to think that he did. But, all right, well, I got a few minutes left. I'll do Evening Bell, which I've played before, but why not play it again? This is all in leading up to next week, to Saturday's part 3 of this show, and we'll delve further into the wonderful mysteries of Doc at the Radar Station. Bell, one of my favorites, and playing it to this day. So thanks everybody for turning in and listening. I love to talk about Don Van Vliet. He was for me a force of nature and deserves to be in rock and roll canon. He should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I gave up on that little endeavor a long time ago. Thanks everybody for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you on Saturday.